Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about logos and logo design. Logos are everywhere. We see them, we know what they are, but I think we're going to just break it down a little bit to the different types of logos and the functionalities for them. Logo is a symbol. It's associated with a product, company, or idea. They're meant to give the product an identity and a visual appearance that people can remember. I think if I mention the Nike logo, everybody knows instantly in your head what it is and what it looks like. Or if I mention the Facebook logo, you have a pretty decent idea of what it looks like, if you visit Facebook enough. But there's a couple of different types of logos. There's what's called the logo mark, and this is merely a pictorial or an image of a company or a brand. Oftentimes, it's very simplified. It's an illustration. It's broken down to its pure context. And keep in mind that logos can be as small as a quarter of an inch in size, all the way to feet, 10, 20, 30 feet very easily. Particularly like the Nike logo, for instance. That sometimes is on a billboard, and that's about 10 feet long and about 6 feet tall to look at. There's also what's called a logotype, and this is purely typography-driven logo. You can see that you may add a box or a circle to it as well to kind of give it some sort of context or container to work in. But otherwise, it's really working specifically with the typography and spacing and maybe a little bit of illustration. But again, it's not like creating an entire image, but ultimately this is an image, but it's built off of using typography. There's also the combination of both. Here are some of our well-known companies that use both the logo type and the mark. These can be sometimes separated and be used independently of each other, depending on the materials and branding materials that they're producing, or they can be used together as a whole. So it kind of goes both ways. If you look at your handheld device for, say, for instance, Airbnb, it's actually just this little symbol, the mark, plus a little rounded square that would be your button for your handheld device. Same thing for Spotify. You don't need to know the name; you just know what the symbol looks like. But then if you go to the website, you usually see both, either or both in combination. Logos can be hand drawn to give a certain aesthetic of classic or antique-like. This is kind of harks back to the time when everything used to be hand drawn and everything looked a little bit more less machined and less perfect, but more humanistic in some ways. Logos can reflect a bit of nostalgia. These are actually all computer-derived logos. They're a little bit more finished and refined. You can see there's a combination between logo marks and logos, or logo type as well, or a mix between the both. This is a look at the Shell logo. It's a petroleum company. And this is how they started off at the 1900s. It was just an image of a shell, which works in some ways. But if you look at it, for me, it kind of looks like a UFO, and it doesn't necessarily give me that instant recognizability that it has. But then you can see how it progressed a little bit into a full profile view of the shell, and then it becomes more reduced over time. It's less detail. And then, they added the typography on top of it. And then it's now becoming even far less detailed than what it originally was compared to 1904. And then you can see that, they're starting to play with it a little bit by putting it inside of a box. But ultimately it said it doesn't need a box. And then, it's now separated between the logo type and the logo mark instead of having it completely all as one. Because, again, you give that flexibility. And then you can see they changed a little bit of the colors a little bit. And then now, 1999 and forward, if I remember correctly, this is the kind of the present day logo that they're using. You don't need the word shell because you've seen this so much and so often that if it's your favorite gas station to go to, you instantly recognize it. Especially if you're driving on the highway, you'll be able to see it for about a half mile down the road. But you can see the simplicity of it from the complexity to simplicity gives you the ability to be able to recognize that logo more efficiently and cleanly. Also, again, when you scale this down to a quarter of an inch, these details are still, definable and they're there, but they don't get all kind of garbled up as would happen if you, size this down to a quarter of an inch. This all gets a little hard to read. Pepsi Cola has also gone through logo changes throughout different parts of their history. Logos are always updated to kind of keep up with the times and keep up with like current trends. You can see it's a little bit more on this classic kind of script style. It was kind of, Pepsi Cola and the Coca-Cola logo were all handwritten, hand drawn at the beginning, but ultimately became more and more refined, and the curves are a lot smoother, and becomes a little bit more friendly instead of like a little hokey. I think you can see they have to, they shortened it, by the 60s to just Pepsi instead of Pepsi Cola. And you can see the different iterations that they go through here, 98, 2000, and then, currently what we have now, which is kind of like, more like a deformed Pokemon ball or something. I don't know. It just kind of, I don't know if it does much for me these days. I kind of like the older logos and the newer ones, but, sometimes they make improvements and sometimes they kind of devolve. But the thing about logos is that they have to have an everlasting character, something that kind of stands out. So we have, like Nike. Nike's not going to change their logo. I guarantee you that logo has pretty much, one of those rare occasions where that logo is pretty much set for life. They might change the logo type, but the logo itself, the logo mark, probably will never change. But then, you have to kind of think about what makes it lasting. It's not only the company or the logo itself, but it's the company's service or product that kind of makes that logo a lasting characteristic. So you kind of have to kind of think about that for any logo that you make or logo mark or type. Is how long could it last? How long could you live with it as the design? There are some logos that have been out there for 20, 30 years, such as Nike and a couple others, but there's some that changes like every 10 to 15 years to kind of go with the trends. But you want it to be able to last at least 10 years easily, going forward. It has to be readable. The messaging or the idea that you want to promote has to be kind of present, and this kind of really associates with the keywords that you kind of assign with it. Say, for instance, like the McDonald's logo, instantly readable. We can read the M's. We know it's nicknamed the Golden Arches, so on and so on. But it's one of those logos that has stood the test of time, and it's simplified. Again, it's instantly readable. Sometimes you have to kind of simplify things down to a very pure form. The logo has to work in black and white. Either most logos will come in color. Black and white logos are perfectly fine to make, but ultimately think about the end result of a document can be printed, or oftentimes it's printed on a black and white printer because it's cheaper than color printing. And logos have to be able to translate from a black space or a color space to a black and white space, and still be readable. It's one of the successful marks for the Nike logo. And the messaging is understandable. Logos, this is where like the keywords are often associated with the company brands. So if I look at this logo for Mercedes, I know I'm looking at quality. I'm not looking at cheap. I'm looking at high quality. I'm looking at luxury class. Those are kind of the messaging that it sends from a logo. And it has to be scalable. Logos, like for Starbucks, it goes as small as this. Probably is about a half an inch or somewhere between half and a quarter of an inch in width. And then you go up to the sign outside. That logo is easily 2 feet wide, if not larger in some cases. And again, this is where, when you're doing logo design, you want to save the file as a vector image, or otherwise known as a EPS file, an extended PostScript file. And this is a file that is infinitely scalable from any one size to another and does not lose any quality and resolution. So it's something you kind of have to keep in mind. And again, you can see that the Starbucks has like the logo mark, which is a siren, and then it has the logo type that kind of goes on, wraps around the outside, and they can use it in any fashion, and it's flexible. And it has to be simple. Simple logos, simple design is by far the hardest thing I've ever had to try to, convey, because you have to basically break down all these ideas of what this logo is supposed to mean into a very simplified form. And when it's done well, it will last a lifetime for the company. Um, things to think about in your logo design or in Logotype or in Logomark. Circles, squares, and triangles are very effective in logo design and part of their simplicity. These are the basic building blocks or basic elements that we use within design, and they all kind of have a different type of meanings. Again, you can group several of them together and to make interesting patterns. Like, what if you take triangles and just turn them and put them together and to make a bigger triangle. Smaller triangles make a bigger triangle. Circles, you can do the same thing as well. Squares, you can make a triangle out of it. Just it kind of depends on how you kind of group them. But the meaning of the shape, circles are have shown to represent protective or infinite within when using a circle. Squares denote stability or equality or honesty. And some folks feel that triangles suggest tension or conflict or an action. And these are how people will read and perceive a logo and the emotions that kind of connects with it. Sketches always helps. I think sketches is the most valuable thing that anybody can do as a designer or creative because you're just kind of writing out ideas and just quickly put it on paper what it might look like. And then from there, you can go into the computer and start extrapolating on the details and adding things and taking away things and further developing it. You can see here that, developing logos for somebody has many different iterations. There's about, you can see here, there's number 33 different logos here. I only put up the second half. You can see it goes from, just a mark. And then what if we take the mark and we add it to the text? And then what if we take the mark and add a little mountain to it? We have the compass version of that. We have, this is a combination of Logotype and a Logomark. And so you get to see how, your ideas generate when you actually, capture your ideas on a piece of paper and sketch it out. And then, color is also paramount in the logo design. The colors all have an emotional attachment for folks and how people read it and perceive it. So, for instance, if we look at, like, say, the Nike logo or the Apple logo or the New York Times logo, they're primarily black or silver or in some cases, which is just gray. There's no color, but it gives a sense of neutral or calm about it. Green often associates with like environment or peace. Blue is seen as a trustworthy color. It also kind of represents strength. Creativity is kind of represented in purple. Red, excitement and bold. Those are kind of things that you might think about in some of these various brands. And then, color oftentimes, if you want the logo to be friendly, those are kind of, or optimistic. But then there's companies who use all the colors, such as eBay or Google or NBC. It also kind of represents diversity in many ways because you're trying to be inclusive of all the other colors and have them work together in that sense. I want to leave you with just a little 30-second clip of a logo process for Yahoo. I think this was about in 2000 and I want to say 2015 or 2016. Yahoo changed their logo, and they're going to show you all the rejections, the ones that didn't make it to the final round, and they show you the variations and the ideas that they had to kind of put together. Um, and it's, the thing about it is that there's no one answer, but you have to kind of go through all the steps and all the variations in order to find the answer, because you got to be able to compare them.